Hello.
I am Lauren.
And I am Ken.
And this is Paradise After Dark.
Dark.
Paradise After Dark is an independent podcast covering true crime,
Unsolved mysteries,
missing people,
and some urban legends.
Please check out our website, paradiseafterdark.com. On the website, you'll find links to all of our episodes, even the archived episodes, our mailing list, merch store, links to our social medias, and of course, our Patreon.
Yeah, and I believe you've also got a some sort of like link tree or something to that effect. So if you want to look for us, you go to the website and there's a link that'll get you to everything.
Yeah, we do have a link tree. You can find it on all of our social medias, pretty much.
Hit that and it'll take you everywhere we are.
Yes.
Follow our footprints. And also on the website, you'll find a virtual tip jar. So if you want to help us out, just give us a little bit of a tip and we'll give you a shout out on the show. So, Lauren, a little bit of a break we've had. It's kind of nice.
We have. We did take a break, and we thank you so much, dear listeners, for being patient with us.
Yeah, hanging in there. And because we've had a lot of stuff to do. And
we've had a lot going on the last few weeks.
And so it's finally nice to get back and kind of get back in here and get a case put out. And this one that we have tonight is, we're going to bring you today, I should say, tonight, however you want to say it. Whenever you're listening to this, could be day, could be night, who knows? Could just be a lunch break from work. I don't know. Could be driving in a car, working out in the gym. I don't know. But however you're listening, whenever you're listening, or whyever you're listening, this case tonight, it was weird for me because as I was researching it, I started to like get somewhat nostalgic, like going back a little bit into sort of going back in time and starting to imagine like the TV shows at the time and the certain things that just were transpiring at this time. And I do remember seeing some of these things on TV. Obviously, you had the big talk shows. That was pretty much how you found things out, or you saw the goings on all over,
Yep.
So you'd watch the talk shows, or there was remember back, like there was Hard Copy, and Hard Copy was like the predecessor, I think, to TMZ or something. I'm not sure.
Maybe.
I don't know, but it's like you had these like.
But information wasn't at your fingertips.
Exactly. So why don't we just kind of jump into this, Lauren, and
Well, let me set the scene for you. Okay. So imagine this. It's the late 80s, early 90s.
So neon colors are in.
Manhattan, New York.
Okay.
There is no Instagram or TikTok or Snapchat or any of those. This was even before MySpace.
Whoa.
For us dinosaurs. No cell phones, let alone cell phone cameras. And some of you listeners probably weren't even born yet.
That's a good chance.
Yet somehow a group of young adults became New York's original influencers, setting beauty and fashion trends and spending all day putting together their club looks for that evening. The group was officially christened the Club Kids by New York Magazine in 1988. The Club Kids captured the public's attention due in part to its members' flamboyant behavior, outrageous costumes, and in the end, their obsession with being what we now call extra.
Well, one of the things you have to think about as you listen when Lauren's talking about the people that are involved, it was the clothes that made these people. I mean, it was like what you see on these runways, these whacked out, weird, eccentric clothes.
Extra.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's like just picture the weirdest thing you could possibly think of in the 90s, color-wise and look-wise, and that's what they were wearing.
Well, the flamboyant group held these decadent parties, impromptu dance parties on subway stations and in fast food joints that landed them on the 6 o'clock news and tabloid TV shows like Geraldo.
Yeah, like Geraldo. I think they were on Joan Rivers. They were on Donahue.
They were the main attraction for the now closed but once iconic epicenter of club kid culture, a club called the Limelight. We were basically brand ambassadors for the clubs. Walt Cassidy, aka Walt Paper, a former club kid and author of the book New York Club Kids, told the New York Post in 2020. I liken it to the old Hollywood systems where actors would be loyal to one studio. In the same article, Cassidy explains that he and his friends were loyal to New York club king Peter Gayton, former owner of Club USA, the Limelight, and Tunnel. This group which at one point included around 25 people, all lived together in a 3-floor triplex in Gramercy before spreading out to the Hotel 17 and the Chelsea Hotel. It was an alternative culture that evolved out of the heaviness of the 80s with AIDS, nuclear threats, and conservative politics, he said. We needed to lighten up. We were self-obsessed creatures trying to make a living. Drugs were both the catalyst for the long nights that turned into early mornings and the downfall of the scene. What started with pot, acid, and ecstasy evolved into cocaine, Special K, and eventually heroin, which Cassidy said ruined everything. Some people got into freebasing and smoking crack, and that's when it all got really dirty and really dark and fell apart, he said. While wallpaper may blame the downfall of the club kids on drugs, which I'm sure played a huge role in it, many blame it on the grisly murder that occurred in 1996.
Which brings us to a man named Michael Aleg. Now, he's mostly credited with creating this Club Kids. And that was the actual term. I mean, it was Club Kids. I mean, it was just the terminology
That's
for
what they
this
were called,
group.
the Club Kids.
First I started looking at it, I was thinking it was, because you hear Club Kids and you instantly start thinking like, the Mouseketeers and Mickey Mouse Club. And
no.
This is far, far, far from that. Well, this Michael Ayling, he was already a promoter in New York City, and his ability to stage memorable parties helped him rise in New York's party scene. Now, this guy started out as a busboy and sort of worked his way up and kind of conned his way into being a promoter and became really, really great at it.
Yeah.
After Andy Warhol's death in 1987, when writer Michael Musto famously declared the death of downtown on the cover of Village Voice, Aleg took the reins. And Aleg and other regular club goers began creating these flamboyant personas. Like we said, later became known as Club Kids. That was the onslaught of all of this new fashion, the new drugs. If it was a designer drug, these guys were taking it and they were, and increasing their usage as they went along.
Right.
And Aleg the whole time was kind of the ringleader of all of this. Now, Aleg and his followers were not initially addicted to these drugs. They were addicted to fame, obviously, because, they were just that style. They just got addicted to it. It's easy to get addicted to fame. If you're in that popular scene,
right,
everyone makes you feel so wonderful that it does get addictive. But the drugs that they slowly became addicted to would eventually become a huge part of their lives. In 1988, Aleg, he was hired by the owner of the Limelight, Peter Gatian. Now, Aleg's parties at the Limelight were such a hit that he began organizing parties for Gatian's other clubs, Club USA, the Palladium, and like Lauren said, the Tunnel. Now, Aleg even hosted outlaw parties, which were thrown in various unconventional places, including a Burger King, which, by the way, the Burger King party that he had almost 700 people show up at a Burger King.
That's nuts.
That is crazy. And not just 700 people that were on drugs and dressed in these flamboyant costumes.
Those poor Burger King employees.
Yeah, and it was Burger King, and it wasn't just there. It was Dunkin' Donuts. They would have these parties in abandoned houses, like Lauren said earlier, a Subway. And Aleg even threw a party in a cardboard shanty town, which he rented from its homeless inhabitants, whom he paid them for the rental with cash and a little bit of crack and cocaine, whatever he could get his hands on at the time. Because, homeless people, why not, right? I'm going to rent my place out and make some stuff. Roll with it. But
that's I imagine this dance party in a cardboard box.
Exactly. It was like this, it was weird, just everything about this Michael Aleg and the Club Kids and this whole scene was, like Lauren said, the best way to put it is just what as we call today, just extra. It was just out there. Well, on the darker side of Aleg's job, he would recruit drug dealers to work at these clubs, and they would actually be added to the payroll. So they were hiring drug dealers to come and sell drugs. And new club goers would become addicted to these drugs, and of course they would continue to return to these clubs week after week after week. They're coming back, obviously, for the party scene, the drugs, and just all of that. It's unfortunate when you get into the drug scene, and I kind of seen with the interviews and stuff I read about and some of the stuff I watched, it was literally like there was some camaraderie between all of them, but it all centered around the dancing, the nightlife, and drugs. So Aleg, he's obviously recruiting these drug dealers. So he recruited a gentleman whose name was Angel Melendez to be a drug dealer at the Limelight. And of course, these other clubs are owned by Peter Gatian. And this Angel Melendez, of course, he comes in and he's going to be this head drug dealer at this point.
Well, Andre, better known as Angel Melendez, born May 1st, 1971 in Colombia, arrived in New York with his mother and brother when Angel was 8 years old. Angel learned to speak English in just a few months and seemed to thrive in America. But during his teen years, he became isolated and moody. Angel was gay, and he was terrified of coming out to his family. He felt like an outcast. A gay Hispanic man living in America during that time was not easy. So Angel went searching for a place where he could be himself, and that's how he found the Club Kids.
That's one thing I've got to say about this group is they were very accepting of everyone and everything. I mean, if you were an individual, that's all you had to be.
And as Ken mentioned, Angel quickly became a fixture in the scene. And although Angel dressed in crazy outfits and wore huge white wings on his back, hence the nickname Angel, he was not so much into the club promoting. As we just mentioned, he was more on the drug dealing side of the club scene. Why? Because it was really only the white kids in the club who were promoters, not the people of color.
Okay.
This was further reinforced during an appearance on the Joan Rivers show in the early 1990s, while the white club kids were seated on the stage and interviewed, and Angel sat in the audience with his large wings. Nonetheless, Angel ran with the group for years, selling drugs to club members and club patrons alike.
As the 1990s began, the club kids became occupied by a younger group of personalities that were discovered and mentored by Aleg. But by the beginning of 1996, the Limelight was actually under investigation by the FBI. And because Angel was a known drug dealer, he was barred from entering the club. I mean, he was essentially fired from his drug dealing gig in every New York club. Think about that for a minute. I'm a drug dealer, and I just got fired from my job where I was hired to be a drug dealer. Now, Angel basically had no income, and on top of that, some of the other club kids began to shun him and push him out of the inner circle. I mean, so he's broke, he's feeling alone, so he moves into Aleg's apartment with Michael Aleg and his roommate, this guy named Robert Riggs, a.k.a. Freeze.
On Sunday, March 17th, 1996, Angel and Aleg got into a big argument over a drug debt.
It's always a drug problem, always a drug debt.
The argument soon got physical, and Angel was basically beating the shit out of Aleg. But then Riggs jumped in and hit Angel over the head 3 times with a hammer. Then Aleg began to smother Angel with a pillow. Next, Aleg poured a cleaner or chemical, according to Riggs' confession, into Angel's mouth and then wrapped duct tape around it. According to Riggs' confession, he did try to talk Michael out of smothering him and the pouring of the chemicals down Angel's throat, but aside from a couple, what are you doing and what's your problems, that's about as far as that went. Talking him out of it.
Yeah, it wasn't like he was physically trying to stop him.
He didn't try very hard.
Yeah.
Riggs then helped Aleg carry Angel's lifeless body into the bathroom and place it in the bathtub, where it lay for the next 5 to 7 days.
It was pretty awful because they literally had him in there for all that time, and people were still coming over to the house and hanging out, and they were not allowed to use the bathroom, and people were like, what's that smell? Like, oh, that's why the bathroom's broke. The plumbing's busted. So that's what you're smelling.
Ugh, gross.
So that, just to give you an idea of how nuts that actually is, that people were they were still inviting people over. That to me is just,
when you're strung out on drugs, they had no idea the gravity of what they had done or what they were doing.
That I would agree with. But I'm just saying, also the people coming over can't use the bathroom. It's like, what's that smell?
They're strung out on drugs too.
Well, true. That is true. So speaking of not being strung out on drugs here, let's just take a quick break and we'll come right back.
All right.
Okay, so welcome back. Right now we're at a point where Freeze and Aleg have decided they're going to murder Angel. Obviously, not intentionally. I think this is a spur of the moment thing, but unfortunately it happened. Now they've got him into the bathtub, which he's been there for like 5 to 7 days, like Lauren said. So now, according to Riggs' statement, the two men decided that Angel would need to be removed from the apartment. The only way to do this would be to dismember him to get him out of the apartment. So Riggs went to Macy's and buys 3 large kitchen knives, 2 chef's knives, and a cleaver, big meat cleaver, if you can just picture that. Now, upon him coming back to the apartment, Aleg tells Riggs, hey, Riggs, if you give me 10 bags of heroin, I'll take care of the dismemberment part of this operation. So Riggs, of course, he gladly agrees, and Aleg went into the bathroom alone, closed the door. And first, Aleg cut off both Angel's legs, and at this point, he and Riggs put them into each leg into a separate plastic bag and then into duffel bags. They each took a leg, one by one, and threw them into the Hudson River. So the following day, Riggs goes down to the storage area of the apartment building they live in and found this large cork-lined box. And Ayling and Riggs put the remainder of Angel's body, basically the torso and the arms, into this large plastic garbage bag, then into another bag over that one. Then they put Angel into this box. Now, Riggs mentioned pouring baking soda over the remains, trying to lessen the smell, because obviously, remember, he's been sitting in the bathroom for like 5 days. 7 days, whatever it was. And Riggs even said that he had to put a broom handle into the box because the box itself was kind of, with all the weight was sort of collapsing. And then a few hours later, these two guys took the box from the apartment. They take it down the elevator through the main lobby, and they hail a yellow cab that was waiting right outside the building. And then the cab driver helps them load the box into the trunk. He goes so far as to tie the trunk down because the box was so big. Then they asked the cabbie to take them to the West Side Highway, which was near the Hudson River. Now, they arrived at the spot where they're going to get rid of Angel. They unloaded the box. So the cabbie takes off down the road. So he's gone. And Michael Aleg and Freeze take Angel and throw the rest of him into the Hudson River.
Well, Aleg gave a slightly different story about what happened that week. He said that he used Drano and baking soda to keep the smell at bay, and that the taxi driver actually helped them throw the box into the river. At first, Aleg claimed the killing was in self-defense, but he later admitted to having committed manslaughter. In the weeks following Angel's disappearance, Aleg told anyone who would listen that he and Riggs had killed Angel. Most people did not believe Aleg and thought his, quote, confession was just a ploy to get attention. Meanwhile, aside from Aleg and Riggs, everyone else just thought that Angel was missing.
Could you imagine that?
And this guy's running around telling everyone, I killed him, but nobody believes him.
Yeah, he was that so attention-seeking. He was that narcissistic that people just thought he was just looking for something out of it.
Well, mainstream media began covering Angel's disappearance when the victim's brother and father turned to the press for help. In April of 1996, the cork-lined box, which floated because it was lined on the inside with cork, washed up at the beach at Miller Field in Staten Island and was found by a group of children. However, because the box was found so far from Manhattan, no one connected the body inside with the missing drug dealer. But there were rumors. First publicized to outsiders by Michael Musto in his Village Voice column, which was sort of like a gossip column, that Aleg and Riggs had murdered Melendez. Although technically no names were used, Musto's report included the details of the murder. Musto had previously reported on Aleg's firing from the limelight and noted the buzz about a missing club kid. The following day, the New York Post's Page 6 column ran a lead item about a murder mystery citing Musto's report, as well as a New York Magazine piece quoting the evasive Aleg. Over the coming weeks, the Village Voice continued to report and make accusations about Angel's murder. Despite the details of Angel's murder and the calling out of his murderers being put in print, no one thought it might be a good idea to inform the police.
Huh?
No one was questioned about this.
Exactly.
Angel's brother, Johnny, plastered New York City with missing posters and pleaded with the police for help, but to no avail. Through that whole summer, the police still had not questioned Aleg about the murder. They were focused on his former boss and one-time business partner, Peter Gatian, wanting Aleg to testify against him as he was charged with drug sales and tax evasion. It wasn't until September 8th of 1996 when another dismembered body fished out of the Harlem River at a pier near 134th Street by a homeless woman when police began to actually investigate the case.
So this guy's running around talking about how he murdered Angel, and nobody calls the police or does anything. The police don't do any investigation. There's a story about it, and nothing happens. That's what I find so disheartening about this entire case, is usually you find yourself in this true crime genre where people commit these crimes and they hide it. They don't say a word, and detectives look for years and years and years, and then finally someone says they heard something, and then it gets mentioned, and then they go to the police, and it gets solved 10, 15 years later. Here it happens, and a couple days later, everyone knows exactly what happened. Everyone's been told what it was, and nothing happens. The police do nothing. People do nothing. They talk about it. That's
It's crazy.
It's crazy. But then finally, now this is shortly after the New York Post ran a story about the other torso that was found in Harlem, or in the Harlem River. A cop in Staten Island had this epiphany. They had also found a torso, but it had been misclassified as being of Asian descent and had been sitting in a morgue for months. And the Staten Island Police Department finally used the dental records to identify Angel Melendez on November 2nd of 1996. So imagine that. We finally starting to put pieces together.
Right.
I mean, we're going to use dental records.
So he was murdered
Imagine
March
that.
17th, and he wasn't identified until November 2nd.
Dental records. This is
By
a
dental records,
key
yes.
piece of forensics.
Right,
I mean, that is huge. If they have teeth, that's one of the first things you go with.
right.
You know, tattoos, teeth, fingerprints. It's pretty basic, but obviously they couldn't use fingerprints or, I mean, they didn't have those things. Legs were already thrown. So I don't know. This blows my mind. Well, so as soon as the police realized that this body that was in Staten Island morgue was in fact Angel Melendez, they picked up Riggs for questioning. Remember Riggs, that's Freeze, is his nickname.
Yep.
Now, after just a few hours under questioning, Riggs is done. He spills the entire details of the murder in 3 handwritten pages. The story was self-defense. Angel attacked Aleg. He helped stop the Angel, and they accidentally killed him in the process. The rest of it, the Drano, the chopping of the body, the dumping, was all attributed to panicking in a drug-induced haze. But prosecutors were hesitant. Get this. They're hesitant to charge Aleg with first-degree murder because they still hoped that he would testify against his former boss, Peter Gatian.
Right. So not only that, but they wouldn't even find Michael Aleg as he had fled.
He's gone.
When authorities heard he was back in the city, they tried to track him down. They visited his main drug dealer, Brooke Humphreys, at a Chelsea hotel and arrested her for selling cocaine. When Humphreys still refused to give up Aleg, they simply looked at a bulletin board in her apartment, which contained a note that had Aleg and his new boyfriend's hotel and room number in Toms River, New Jersey. The next day, the police arrested him. That same day, Riggs gave his full signed confession. But this is the part of the story where the district attorney and the DEA get into like this tug of war over Michael Aleg.
This is, yeah.
So the prosecutors are claiming that he must be charged with murder, but the DEA is claiming that he is their star witness against his former boss, Peter Gatian. And the DEA had been building this case against the club owner for months and hoping that Aleg would be a key witness. And if Aleg was convicted or suspected of murder, his testimony wasn't so valuable. That makes him not a great witness, and not a credible witness, if you will. I know.
Mind blown.
Ken's mind is exploding.
Well, think about this. We got a guy that we're going to charge him with maybe some tax evasion and some drug dealings. Or we have a guy we're going to charge with murder. But we don't want to charge the guy with murder because we need to get this guy on these other charges that are not murder.
So if the trial happened after the Gatian case went to trial, the DEA would have a better case. That was their argument. That's why they didn't want them to arrest.
So they pulled that me first shit.
Me first.
Me
yes.
first shit.
But in the end, Aleg actually ended up recanting all of his testimony against Peter Gatian.
Well, yeah, he kind of had his hands full of another problem.
So he wasn't going to testify in that case anyway.
Well, no. And then finally, on September 11th of 1997, Michael Aleg pleaded guilty in the state Supreme Court in Manhattan to one count of first-degree manslaughter. Just a little something I would like to add. If you murder someone and then chop them up, so you slaughter the man after you murder him, as far as I'm concerned, it's still murder. The whole manslaughter part really blows my mind.
Well,
so
it was a plea deal.
Well, exactly. I mean, Robert Riggs, he also pleaded guilty to the manslaughter charge too. So I understand it's a plea deal, but it just blows my mind of the lessening of charges just for a plea deal. But that's unfortunately how the system works. Now, Riggs admitted that he and Aleg had smothered Angel, chopped his body, and he admitted to throwing in the Hudson River. I mean, this is all part of the deal. Of course, when they make a plea deal, they've got to be 100% truthful. And I think Riggs was pretty truthful and pretty much giving him all the evidence. Remember, he caved early and told our investigators everything. And then the Limelight, remember the Limelight, the big club? It closed in 1987, and this essentially ending the era of the club kids.
Wah, wah, wah.
Yeah. So let's take a quick little break here, and then we'll come back and finish up our story for tonight. Okay, so we're back. So a quick little recap. Now, Aleg and Freeze have pretty much admitted to everything that's going on. They're taking the plea deal. It's all manslaughter. And so they've kind of gone through and told the whole story of what transpired.
So on October 1st, 1997, both men came to court for their sentencing. Justice William Wetzel asked if the two had anything to say about their crime. According to CrimeLibrary.com, Riggs stood up and read from a long letter. It was a letter expressing sorrow. It was clear that Riggs regretted what he had done. It read in part that I was party to the death of another human being wounds me in the depths of my heart and soul. I can never undo that. I endeavor to understand the aspects of myself that led me down such a gross and destructive path, but I have yet to come to any definite conclusions. He pointed out that he, Aleg, and Angel were all victims of drugs. Riggs was sentenced to 20 years in prison.
Well, when it was Aleg's turn to talk, he confessed he had nothing prepared to say, but he spoke anyway. So he comes in there and he says, I don't really have anything to say. So he says this, I came here today not prepared to accept my sentence. So I didn't come with a speech because I was told we were going to postpone for another week, 2 weeks, or something like that. I don't know. All I know is I've been told lots of different things by lots of different people in exchange for me doing other things, and none of it has come true. I feel like I've just been railroaded. I have been used by the feds. When they were through with me, they sent me over here. I feel like I've been lied to here and get me to accept this plea deal, that plea deal. Now, he added almost as an afterthought, and I feel terrible that I don't have anything prepared to say. Now, of course, you can imagine how this sounds in front of the judge.
Right.
And obviously, the judge has no patience for Aleg's whiny behavior. Quote, you are the victim, he asked. In a way, said Aleg, that's how narcissistic they said I was. He felt like he was the victim in this. So the judge basically speaks and says, I don't think you are the victim. I think that Angel Melendez is the victim. He's the victim of your selfish, uncontrolled ego that has yet to be harnessed, that has yet to face reality. For you, the show is over, the party is over. And with a bang of the gavel, Aleg was sentenced 10 to 20 years in prison.
And the party was indeed over for Michael Aleg.
Like you said earlier, wah, wah, wah.
Prison life wasn't great for him. Or was it? It was sort of hard to tell, to be honest. In his early days in prison, he tested positive for heroin and was sentenced to 2.5 years in solitary confinement at the Southport Correctional Facility. He had been in the mental ward at Rikers Island and moved from different facilities, including Elmira, Coxsackie, and Washington Correctional Center in Comstock, New York. In August of 2004, Aleg's lifetime friend and mentor, James St. James, began a blog entitled Phone Calls from a Felon. The blog contained transcripts of phone conversations between Aleg and St. James about Aleg's experiences in prison. After 6 weeks, Aleg put a stop to the phone calls, claiming, "People think I'm having a grand old time, or that I'm trying to exploit my situation." Aleg was up for parole in 2006 and 2008 and was denied both times. Jonathan Van Meter from New York Magazine wrote that he planned a meeting with Aleg in 2006, and here's an excerpt of what he wrote. "I can hardly believe it's been 10 years already. Go ahead and make the arrangements and just let me know when you're planning to come up. Looking forward to meeting you." The letter, scribbled in loopy adolescent handwriting on a piece of loose-leaf paper, had the look of a note that might be surreptitiously passed in grade school homeroom and a breezy tone of an invitation to stop by someone's country house. Here was the same old la-di-da Michael Aleg, the petulant man-child who speaks in exclamation points even after 10 years of hard time. Everything I knew about him indicated that he wasn't just surviving in prison, he was thriving.
Well, sadly, I guess, Aleg was paroled on May 5th of 2014. Now, per the conditions of his parole, Aleg returned to New York City and was required to abide by an 8 p.m. curfew and undergo drug and anger management counseling and job readiness training. Obviously, after that many years in prison, you got to sort of get acclimated back into regular life. And in the months following his release, Aleg granted numerous interviews in which he expressed a desire to star in his own reality show and stage an exhibition of his artwork. Now, part of his artwork was a lot of his things that he had collected and accumulated as a club kid. I mean, a lot of that memorabilia.
Yeah.
But at this point, nobody gives a shit about that. I mean, nobody really cared about that kind of stuff. But this just goes to show you just how, I mean, so he spent like 20 years away, but it was almost like one day. You know, he thought that he was going to come back and everything was just going to be like it was.
Yeah.
He was going to go right back into his fame and fortune. Like, okay, I did my time. Here I am, guys.
Well, Aleg claimed that he was suffering from histrionic personality disorder, which is defined by the American Psychiatric Association as a personality disorder characterized by a pattern of excessive attention-seeking behaviors, usually beginning in early childhood, including inappropriate seduction and an excessive desire for approval. People diagnosed with this disorder are said to be lively, dramatic, vivacious, enthusiastic, extroverted, and flirtatious. Maybe that's why he never, not once, let down his facade of the lighthearted party guy, even in the face of murder and prison, etc.
Yeah. Well, in May of 2014, there were reports that Aleg was attempting to sell this memorabilia that I was talking about, his memoirs, memorabilia, everything he's got, and was pursuing a career as a magazine writer. And from September 7th, 2014 on, Aleg and fellow club kid Ernie Glam hosted a YouTube comedy talk show titled The Pew. Now, he also released some probably nauseating pop songs at some point during this time.
What a piece of shit.
You know, he's a narcissistic piece of shit.
For real.
I mean, here's the problem that I see is, you know, when he was behind bars and it was like that time he spent behind bars, the world completely changed. I mean, once the internet hit the scene, there's so much stuff out there, availability, social medias. I mean, it was literally, if you go back 10 years where you had, like Lauren said earlier, or 15 years where you had MySpace was it, and then Facebook kind of came in, and now there's Twitter and Snapchat and TikTok and all these. That's the kind of stuff.
There's a new one I just learned about. It's called Wizzy.
No, I don't want to get involved in no Wizzy. Wizzy sounds like you're going to video yourself taking a leak or something.
I don't know. I don't know exactly what it is, but
okay, good, because it made me nervous.
No, it's my turn to talk now.
No. I'm still talking. You can't just stop me like that. I'm in the middle of, I'm talking about this guy that's like super extra and how he went to prison and he doesn't realize how much the world changed in that time he was gone. And now he's out and he thinks that he's just going to walk right back in and all of a sudden he's going to be this club promoter again. That's how this guy's mindset was. I mean, he just thought everything was going to be exactly how it was and he was going to be right back to his lifestyle. Like, killing someone didn't happen. You know, I mean, that just blows my mind. So anyway, I didn't mean to cut you off, but this whole case blows my mind.
Within a few years, he was arrested again for smoking crystal meth in a park after dark.
Surprise, surprise.
He didn't get any jail time.
Too bad.
On December 24th of 2020, shortly before midnight, Aleg was found unconscious by his ex-boyfriend at their Washington Heights, Manhattan home. He was using heroin before he fell ill and was pronounced dead at the scene. The Office of the Chief Medical Examiner in New York City verified in May 2021 that Aleg died from acute intoxication from the drug fentanyl, heroin, and methamphetamine. He was 54 years old.
Now think about that. He was 54 years old, but he was still trying to get back into the whole, like, pop culture type scene. At 54. I think you're pretty much done for, not to mention you were gone for 20 years. But I think jail time might have saved his life at this point. And it never occurred to me until you just mentioned it that December 24th, I didn't realize it was Christmas Eve. That he had died on Christmas Eve.
Yep.
I don't know why that's such a big deal, but I never realized that until now. Well, remember, there's also Freeze. So after serving 12 years in 5 months, Robert, quote, Freeze Riggs was given conditional release on March 30th of 2010. So he actually got out before Aleg. And one of the conditions of his release was that he could have no direct or indirect contact with Michael Aleg. Now, since his release, this guy must be like in a witness protection program or must be flying really far under the radar, as there's nothing at all about this guy on the interwebs. I mean, there is, but there's not really a whole lot of information.
About where he is now, no. I couldn't find anything.
Where are you now? So, Robert Riggs, if you're listening to this, give us a call. We'd like to talk to you.
And that, my friends, is the very sad story of the New York club kids and the murder of Angel Melendez.
Wow. When you just said that, it puts it in perspective because you forget that Angel Melendez was murdered.
It gets buried in all of this other drama.
Yeah, there was so much stuff going on all around it. I mean, he was murdered and people were saying, hey, we killed this guy. And it was like nobody cared. I mean, regardless of what you do.
It's pretty messed up.
It is. And I'm not saying that Angel Melendez was a stand-up guy, but he was a human being.
Right.
And as you can see, as people grow up, they change. Now, the one thing I really dislike about this Michael Aleg is this guy had the world kind of by the balls at the time. This guy was a club promoter. He was sort of on top. He was at the pinnacle of that genre, those people. I mean, people followed him. They listened to him. He could talk. I mean, he had a chance to do so much more with his platform. And if you take a look at some of the other people in that genre, one of them that really stands out, that was a club kid, was Rupaul. I mean, he turned that image, that person that he was in the club kid scene. And look at him now. I mean, he's got his own show. What is it? The Rupaul's Drag Race.
I have no idea.
But I mean, everyone knows Rupaul. So, I mean, you could have taken that if you'd just gotten away from the drug part of it and grew up a little bit and maybe not killed anybody, you could have been something so much bigger, so much better. You could have actually done good for people. I mean, Rupaul is hugely outspoken for everyone. You know, I mean, he's huge in that particular scene still today. And people look up to the guy. So, or woman. I don't know.
I don't know. Let's not go into that.
Yeah. Can we cut that out of there when I said that?
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, Rupaul is like huge. So this guy could have been so much more, but instead he was just a piece of shit that murdered somebody, went to prison and got out, thought everything was going to be back to normal. And that because he was this big club promoter in New York 20 years previous, that he was going to go right back to that, and everyone gave a shit and they didn't. Yeah. And sadly, basically the drugs just got him, unfortunately. So,
or fortunately.
Yeah, I guess depending on how you look at it.
I'm not as in awe of Michael Aleg as you seem to be.
I'm not. I just was very upset that the guy had the potential to be so much more. And it turned out to just be a murderous prick.
Yeah, you know, well, a lot of people have the potential to be so much more.
And I get that. I understand that. But I found it very disappointing that this guy, he was, you know what I mean? I don't like it when someone in those, you take a look at someone in those high positions that can lead people, but choose to lead them down the wrong path. And sadly enough, this is one of those cases where he just led himself down the wrong path. But so, Lauren, I guess that's going to be it for tonight then, huh?
Yeah. Anyone, if you'd like to support our show, please check out our Patreon at patreon.com/Palmahawk Media. That's PALMAHAWK Media.
And as mentioned at the beginning, check out our website for links to all of our social media, merch store, and all kinds of other good fun stuff.
And please make sure to subscribe to the show on whatever platform you're listening on, and rate and review us. This really helps us branch out and reach a wider audience.
We appreciate y'all's patience for our little break that we took, our summer vacation, if you will. And as always, we thank you very much for listening
to Paradise After Dark.
Duck, 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 duck.